Hello and welcome back to our channel, Beyond the Gates fans. This Monday in the DMV area, one suspicious husband is getting closer to uncovering a dangerous secret. Two operatives are facing an unexpected crisis, and a long-running family feud may finally be nearing its end. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. Everything I create is purely speculative and based on my personal views. The latest spoilers for Beyond the Gates airing on Monday, March 9th, focus on Bill seeking out Joey to talk about Haley and the man named Sammy, whom she keeps communicating with. At the same time, Jacob begins to fear that his false identity has been exposed, while Naomi urges Chelsea to make peace with Cod. The main points to remember are these. Bill meets with Joey to discuss Haley's mysterious connection to Sammy, a link that could seriously threaten to expose her hidden family ties. Jacob becomes terrified that his identity has been compromised after a shocking encounter with Grace and leaves both men rattled. Meanwhile, Naomi pushes Chelsea to reconcile with Cod as the tension between the two cousins continues to simmer across the DMV area. Some secrets do not explode with a gunshot or crash down like a storm visible from miles away. Instead, they slip into people's lives through tiny details that seem harmless at first, then quietly poison trust from the inside out. In Fairmont Crest and throughout the glittering DMV world, what truly suffocates people is not public accusation, but the moment a glance lingers too long, a name is mentioned one time too many. Anger erupts at the wrong moment, or a silence stretches long enough to turn suspicion into obsession. Bill begins stepping into that exact darkness when he realizes that the name Sammy keeps surfacing around Haley far too often to be dismissed as coincidence. At first, it is only a collection of scattered fragments, Haley avoiding him whenever her phone rings, subtle shifts in her expression when she thinks no one is watching, and the way she strains to play the role of a woman simply shaken by a robbery. But the more Bill watches, the more he realizes he is not dealing with fragility after trauma. He is looking at a disguise thrown together in haste, full of cracks and growing harder to maintain by the day. The feeling of betrayal does not come to him in a loud, explosive way. It comes like a cold sensation creeping down his spine, slow but ruthless, because what enrages a man like Bill is not only being lied to, but realizing he may have been manipulated, used, and turned into an outsider in his own life. The moment Chelsea accidentally sees her stepmother arguing fiercely with Sammy becomes the first fracture exposing the hollow center beneath everything. Chelsea is not the kind of person who overlooks something strange, especially when she has grown up in a family where the truth is often buried beneath layers of politeness, obligation, and appearances. What she witnesses tells her immediately that Haley and this man called Sammy cannot simply share an ordinary working relationship. The tension between them does not feel like a business disagreement or a passing misunderstanding. It carries the weight of history, buried emotion, power, and fear all at once. And when Chelsea confronts them, Haley's reaction only pushes the situation further. Haley does not just defend herself, she loses control. Her anger erupts too quickly, too intensely, and far too neatly around blaming everything on the trauma of being robbed and her supposedly fragile mental state. To an outsider, that explanation might sound believable. But to Chelsea, it sets off every warning bell in her mind. The harder Haley tries to use pain as a weapon to silence others, the more she exposes herself. Someone who is truly panicking does not usually control the narrative that tightly. Haley is not simply losing her temper, she is fighting to keep a wall of lies from collapsing, and that excessive aggression transforms her from victim into suspect. What Bill does not know, and what makes the situation truly dangerous, is that Sammy is actually Randy, Haley's cousin. That truth changes all of the secrecy into something darker, more personal, and far more frightening. If Sammy were only an employee, an associate, or some shady middleman, Bill could deal with him through power, money, or pressure. But if this is a blood relative Haley has deliberately kept hidden, then this is no longer a side issue. It is an entire secret structure built long before Bill even began to suspect anything. That is what makes his anger deepen. He begins replaying every moment Haley dodged questions about her past, every blank space in the stories she told about her family. Every time she behaved as if her history were a painful territory that should never be touched. Now Bill no longer sees those gaps as wounds, he sees them as strategy. The more he remembers, the more humiliated he feels. Not only because Haley hid Randy from him, but because she may have calculated from the beginning that Bill would sympathize with the pieces she chose to reveal while never allowing him near the parts that could destroy the entire image she built. That is why Bill goes to Joey in silence, not as a hurt husband, but as a man beginning to suspect he has been drawn into a larger game than he ever imagined. He cannot keep confronting Haley directly, because every question now only makes her more cautious. He also cannot let Chelsea know too much, because dragging his daughter into the swamp of family deceit is the last thing he wants, even though Chelsea's discovery is what set all of this in motion. Joey is the most logical choice, but also the one that unsettles Bill the most. He knows Joey is not the kind of man who stays innocent on the sidelines of a major secret. A man like Joey, with his talent for sensing weakness in other people, could not possibly fail to notice that something is wrong between Haley and Sammy. If Joey already knew and said nothing, then what is the value of that silence? Is it caution, a calculated gamble, or proof that Joey has been holding back the truth until the perfect moment? Bill's suspicion is no longer directed only at Haley. It begins to spread to everyone around her. In his mind, a darker possibility starts to form. Maybe he is not the only one being deceived. Or worse, maybe he is the last one to realize he has been deceived. As for Joey, his suspicion about the connection between Haley and Randy has been lingering like a thorn under the skin. But Joey is the kind of man who does not pull out a thorn while it is still useful. He understands the value of incomplete information. Reveal it too early, and you lose your advantage. Hold it too long, and you invite danger. Now that Bill has come to him on his own, Joey faces an uncomfortable decision. Remain silent to preserve control, or begin a new game by sharing part of what he suspects and watching how Bill reacts. Joey does not fully trust Bill, but he trusts Haley even less. What keeps Joey on edge is not just the possibility that Haley is hiding a dangerous cousin, but the nature of her lies. Haley does not lie like someone afraid of losing what she loves. She lies like someone who sees the truth itself as an enemy that must be controlled. And people like that rarely stop at one secret. Joey understands that if Randy truly is Sammy, then that false name is not only meant to conceal a family connection. It may also be the key to another level of conspiracy where money, power, and blind loyalty collide into the most dangerous kind of silent violence. While Bill and Joey follow Haley's trail, the conflict between Chelsea and Cop becomes another slow-burning fire within the family. One that may not blaze openly yet, but is powerful enough to crack the walls around it. Their clash is not just a simple argument over words or a temporary misunderstanding. It is the overflow of an entire reservoir of jealousy, hurt, emotional distance, and the painful sense that neither of them has ever truly been seen for who she really is. Chelsea has always tended to believe that she understands things faster than others, handles pressure better than others, and therefore has the right to judge the emotional reactions of the people around her as excessive or immature. Cod, on the other hand, lives through hot instinct, sensitive enough to be deeply wounded but proud enough to turn every wound into fierce resistance. When those two ways of being collide at a time when everything around them is unstable, conflict stops being a choice and becomes almost inevitable. Cod's decision to move out of Donnie's guest house proves this is no longer a passing moment of anger. It is an act of separation, of removing herself from a place where she no longer feels respected, or worse, a place where she fears she will always be expected to be the one who gives in first. Naomi stands in the middle of that mess with what appears to be the gentlest role, but even her gentleness hides real pressure. On the surface, Naomi urging Chelsea to make peace with Kot looks like an attempt to preserve family harmony. But on a deeper level, Naomi understands that the fracture between the two cousins is happening at the exact moment when every other secret is beginning to shift. A divided family is the perfect environment for truth to be twisted, exploited, or leaked in the worst possible way. Naomi knows Kot has turned to her, hoping to move in while Jacob is away, and her quiet refusal is not simply about inconvenience. Naomi sees more clearly than anyone that bringing Kot into her private space would also bring in Kot's emotional storm. At a time when Jacob is already in a situation far too dangerous for Naomi to absorb another layer of instability. That refusal leaves Naomi burdened with guilt because she knows Kot will feel abandoned. But Naomi herself is living in a state of self-protection, forced to balance compassion against the fear of being swallowed by someone else's chaos. It is the kind of decision whose pain remains invisible because, on the surface, it sounds like nothing more than a polite no. As Chelsea opens up to Naomi, she is forced to confront a possibility she had been ignoring. Maybe Kot is not angry over one comment or one isolated mistake, but because there have been too many moments when she felt dismissed. Guilt does not come easily to Chelsea. It has to move through wounded pride first, through irritation at being seen as wrong, before it can finally emerge as a truth she can no longer deny. She begins to realize that she has been too confident that Kot would cool off eventually, that she would come back like she always had before. That confidence is not only habit. It is a kind of arrogance disguised as reason. At the same time, Kot spends time with Nicole, listening to her mother offer much-needed advice. But advice only matters when the person hearing it is ready to set down their pain and look beyond themselves. Kot is still too wounded for that. In her current state, every attempt at reason sounds like a denial of what she feels. Nicole may be able to calm her daughter, to warn her that prolonged anger only gives other people the chance to manipulate her, but she cannot carry Kot's humiliation, her pain, or the ache of being misunderstood. The question is not whether Kot listens to her mother. The question is whether she has enough patience not to turn her anger into her next mistake. On another front, the plasma ring crisis pushes everything from quiet danger into a level that could truly destroy lives. Jacob is assigned to Garland Memorial, a location far too familiar to him to feel accidental. That very familiarity makes his chest tighten the moment he receives the order. In a network like this, nothing is entirely random. Every location, every moment, every face that appears can be a message, a test, or a trap. Jacob knows that too well, and the closer he gets to the hospital, the more he feels as if someone is tightening a noose around his neck. The mission sounds simple enough. Deliver a package to a mysterious contact in an elevator. But that simplicity is exactly what makes it terrifying. The most dangerous operations are often disguised as movements too ordinary to attract suspicion. Then, just as the elevator doors are about to close, Jacob sees the receiver. It is Grayson. The world inside him nearly collapses in a single heartbeat. That meeting of eyes is not mere recognition. It is the collision of two realities that were never supposed to cross. Jacob immediately feels that his identity has been exposed. But the most frightening part is not whether Grayson recognized him. It is that Jacob cannot know who arranged the encounter in the first place. If it was an accident, then he still has a fragile chance to contain the damage. But if someone intentionally sent him to Garland Memorial and deliberately placed Grayson there at the exact right moment, then his mission may have already been out of his control long before this point. Jacob's panic is not the kind that bursts outward. It detonates inside a man who has spent too long mastering the art of holding himself together. He knows that one wrong reaction, one misstep, will not only destroy him, but could also drag Naomi, his loved ones, and the very people he is trying to protect into the fallout. So even as fear rises, anger rises with it, anger at being pushed into a helpless position. Anger at having to doubt what once felt familiar. Anger that everything he has tried to build could collapse not because of his own mistake, but because some unseen hand has chosen this moment to see exactly where he will break. On Grayson's side, that encounter in the elevator is not something he can easily shake off either. Ashley later tries to comfort him while he is visibly panicking, but that panic itself only makes the situation more suspicious. A man becoming that shaken for no apparent reason in a hospital cannot help but raise questions. Ashley carries within her a genuine desire to help, to believe in what is good, but she is not naive enough to miss when someone is hiding something. The problem is that Ashley's heart always moves ahead of her caution. That means when she sees Grayson trembling beneath a fear he cannot name, she will want to trust him before she questions him. And that is the most dangerous opening of all. If Grayson is hiding a secret, if he is connected to the plasma ring already, or if he has just been pulled into a network he barely understands himself, then the first lie he tells Ashley will not be meant to hurt her immediately. It will be designed to keep her close, to let her keep soothing him, keep trusting him, and unintentionally shield him from other eyes. A lie like that is far more dangerous than open cruelty because it comes wrapped in visible weakness that invites willing complicity. Ashley, therefore, stands at the edge of a deeply contradictory path she may not even fully realize yet. If she believes Grayson, she may unknowingly become the protector of a secret that could get Jacob killed. If she steps back in suspicion, then she risks becoming cruel toward a man who seems to be genuinely falling apart. This is the kind of impossible choice that wounds good people most deeply, because whether they choose trust or doubt, they lose part of the good image they had of themselves. As for Grayson, panic may force him into more than one lie. He may have to lie deeper and deeper to cover that first reaction, and each new lie will pull Ashley closer to the center of the disaster. It is this emotional entanglement that may destroy everything, because sometimes what exposes a secret is not violence or investigation, but the feelings of someone who accidentally finds themselves standing on the wrong side. Looking at the bigger picture, every storyline seems to be flowing toward the same condition. Everyone believes they still have time to control the truth, but in reality, the truth has already begun moving on its own. Bill thinks he is only starting to follow Sammy's trail, but he is already stepping into the dark place where Haley has hidden not just one false name, but a blood connection capable of destroying marriage, reputation, and trust. Joey believes he can keep silence as a weapon, but the longer he delays, the greater the risk that someone else will rewrite the game in front of him. Chelsea and Cott think their anger is personal, but that very division may open the door for other secrets to spill through. Naomi wants to be the one holding everything together, but the harder she tries to stand in the middle, the more she is pulled into choices with no clean answer. Jacob wants to complete his mission without letting it contaminate his private life, but Garland Memorial has already proven that the line between covert work and personal relationships is collapsing. Ashley wants to save someone she cares about from panic, without realizing that her compassion may become the most convenient tool for a much larger scheme. And perhaps the most terrifying thing is not which secret will explode first, but how these characters will try to protect themselves once they are finally cornered. Bill may grow so furious that he shatters every last layer of civility to force a confession out of Haley, but the harder he pushes, the more likely he is to discover an uglier truth than he was prepared to face. Haley may continue performing the role of the wounded woman, but every new performance brings her closer to the edge of the abyss. Chelsea may try to reconcile with Cott, but if she reaches out at the wrong moment, her apology will feel less like healing and more like emotional charity. Cott may listen to her mother and try to stay calm, but the anger of a young woman who has been pushed too far rarely fades because of a few wise words. Jacob may keep telling himself he has not necessarily been exposed, but that fear will still corrode every decision he makes next. Grayson may find a reasonable excuse for Ashley, but the price of surviving today may be 10 more layers of lies tomorrow. In this world, no one is truly innocent anymore. There are only people choosing between different degrees of destruction, And each choice pushes them farther away from the person they once believed themselves to be. That is why everything unfolding here is more than ordinary family drama or a criminal conspiracy. It is a war between survival instinct and whatever conscience remains, between the need for control and the terror of exposure, between blood ties, pride, hunger for power, and the desperation that comes when people realize they could lose everything. One fake name can hide an entire bloodline. One argument between cousins can signal a far deeper collapse within a family. One moment of eye contact in an elevator can become the spark for a purge. And when all those threads tighten at once, the only thing that feels certain is that no one will leave this game untouched. Because in the end, the cruelest thing is not the secret being exposed. It is the moment each person must ask themselves who they have become while trying to survive it all.